Welcome to the EntrePastors podcast on YouTube. This is a show that helps pastors think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs. Well, hello there, and welcome to the EntrePastors podcast on YouTube. I'm Jon Sanders, one of the co-founders of EntrePastors, and excited to share this week's podcast episode with you. In this episode, we're going to be introducing you to one of the newest members of the EntrePastors team. His name is Shane.Odom, and this guy, well, he is not a pastor. He has been in business for many, many years and has learned just a ton of life lessons about business as he has bought and sold and planted and launched and grown multiple businesses. And he's actually coming on our team at EntrePastors. He's going to be providing some high-level business consulting for some of the people in our community, and he's also going to be a regular part of our EntrePastors mastermind, where our people are going to have access to his knowledge on a weekly basis as a part of our calls. So we're excited about that. I can't wait to introduce you to him. So without any further ado, check out this conversation that me and my co-founder Les Hughes had with our newest team member, Shane.Odom. Check this out. Well, we've got a very special guest that we want to introduce to our EntrePastors audience today. And Les, I think I'm going to let you make the introduction, since this is someone that that way you're responsible for anything that happens from this point forward. So go ahead, Les.
No kidding. Well, Shane.Odom is a great friend of mine. He and his wife, Marie, and their family go back with Paige and myself many, many years. And we've served, at the local church level together. And also we've been involved in some other ventures. So we'll get into some of that during our conversation, but I respect Shane. I not only love him as a friend, but I do respect him as a businessman. And Shane comes from a different world, Jon, in many ways than you and I do, but our listeners are going to really identify with him. He has bought and sold businesses. He's experienced some setbacks in businesses and recovered from them. And he right now, because of the hard work and good decisions and even learning those lessons, he's living a lifestyle now of some financial and time freedom that many people in our audience strive for and have as a goal. So, we can talk about what this looks like as we get into our conversation, but I'll just say in a broad and in a general way, I trust Shane especially with his level of experience in the marketplace as a small business owner. But Shane, as back in the day, we used to call him churchmen, Jon. And those were people that supported the ministry of their church, loved their pastor, supported their pastor, and was willing to come alongside and see the mission through. And that's how I would describe Shane. He's also very honest and pretty blunt, which I like.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll come across in our conversation.
Very good. Well, we're talking about him like he's not here, so he actually is here. So Shane.Odom, welcome to the EntrePastors podcast, man. It's my privilege to have you on the show. Looking forward to our conversation.
Well, good morning, gentlemen, from the great state of Florida. Glad to be with y'all and help any way I can. And hopefully we can get some good information to all the people out there and help them along as well.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Well, hey, let's start with this. As Les mentioned, you are not a pastor. You have a heart for the church. You've been a support to the church over the years, but we're not bringing you on the show to tap your pastoral expertise today. We're going to talk business, and you've got some things to share there. So why don't you just give us a little bit of a walkthrough of kind of your career at the 30,000 foot level? Give us some of the highlights and tell us a little bit about some of the things you've been involved in the marketplace over the years.
Sure. As Les said, I come from a different place than you guys. And for the most part, I think I come from a different place from a business side from most people that are opened and owned businesses and ran them and sold them. It's my first business I opened when I was 22 years old. I was fresh out of the military, came from the 82nd Airborne Division. Really didn't have me and my wife had a plan, but then again, God had His own plan, and it didn't match up. So we took the curveball, and I actually had a really good man that came to me and said, what are you going to do with your life? And I was completely lost since my plan had changed. And, actually my first words was, I guess I'll go work at UPS. That's the only thing I could think of. And he said, look, I have this, why don't you do this? And I won't get into all of it. We'll have some discussions later, but, it was something I knew absolutely nothing about. I had never been in business, didn't have a clue how to run a business. I didn't know anything. All I knew was what I was taught in the Army, and that didn't correlate to anything in the business world. So I started a business at 22 years old. Me and Marie had moved to Birmingham, a place we'd never been to before, didn't know anybody. We just thought it looked really good. Moved up there, started a business, and I was married and had a 1-month-old kid. All I knew was I had to go to work. And we built that company. It was a sales and service-based company that we started out with nothing. Built it up through the years. At one time, we had, I think, 20 or 30 employees at the peak. And built it up. And in 2013, of course, as we went through the years, we expanded it and got into a whole lot of things. And when we got out, we were basically designing parts departments and service departments for car dealerships all over the country and equipping those as well. And so we got out in 2013 because I just had enough, kind of burnt. Mm-hmm. Came to Florida at that point, went into the consulting business, helping some other people in my line of work expand their dealership business. At the same time, got into real estate, started helping doing that primarily for ourselves. A lot of people in our area started asking for us to help them do that. So we got into that and started buying some property, selling some property. And at that point, we did that for a few years, had some friends come to me, wanted me to help them launch a business in the outdoor world that was very technical, which was something I knew nothing about, but I knew how to run a business. And so we went and did that, got that business launched, and got those guys going, came back to Florida, back into the real estate world, and helped many people through the years, from plumbing businesses to construction companies, doing a lot of different things, just helping various people who knew me. Try to fine tune their businesses and make them more productive and show them how to make more money. So that's basically my story. I've been into a little bit of all of it. I've been in the construction business, been into the development side, of course, the equipment business and the outdoor world, real estate. So I've covered the gamut. I hadn't owned a McDonald's yet. Don't want one.
Hey, Shane, when you say outdoor world, can you tell me more? What does that mean? I'm intrigued. I like the outdoor world.
Well, we initially went in to start a company building wildlife feeders that was actually came from the USDA, trying to control the feral hog population. And these guys were working on some technology to do that, basically worked off of facial recognition. And these feeders would only, and of course, at this time, initially it was only designed to feed feral hogs. So the only time they could get to the food was if it was a feral hog, because it was designed to work with a poison.
Gotcha. Okay.
A lot of things you find out in the business world is things you start out as don't work for various reasons. For that one, there was more money in studying the feral hog problem, and the government really didn't want to stop that because a lot of universities are being funded millions and millions of dollars a year. So what we found out was they were actually more interested in studying it than they were in solving it.
You can't fix
like
it.
Our government.
And if you fix it, nobody can profit off of it. Are you kidding?
Right. Exactly. We were cutting a lot of people's money out. So, the sad part of that is, from the government's perspective, is they don't care if the hogs eat all the sugar cane in Louisiana. They don't care if they eat all the soybeans in Illinois. What they care about is giving all their friends money to study the problem that they really don't intend to ever solve.
Yeah. Sounds like government at its finest.
Yeah. So we quickly switched that over and basically just made some small changes. And we turned it into a feeder line that would only feed deer, working off the same premise, facial recognition that had been taken to a much higher level than anybody else at that point had. And then we started working on some other technologies to incorporate into wildlife cameras, which many people use. And the feeder thing kind of went to the side because of some technology issues related to power sources and be able to keep it running because it ran 24/7. It worked great. We had a great looking product. We had great branding, great marketing, and I'd put all that in place. We had great production, but we just couldn't figure out a real good power source that would keep it running constantly. So we took a lot of that technology, swapped it over, and started working on developing a wildlife camera, which is in use now, and they're selling very well. It's called WiseEye, and WiseEye Tech is the name of the company. So basically, that's a camera now that gives, if you're a hunter and you don't have a lot of time to hunt, it's a perfect product because you can just about nail the pattern of a deer down, and especially a particular buck that you want to shoot, and nail him down to a particular pattern based on wind, humidity, time of the year, date, time, just all your different weather conditions combined with where you're at, and it does it to a particular point. So
that makes me feel like a Neanderthal. I just go sit in a tree with my bow and hope for the best. So that sounds very high tech.
Hey, John, by the way, John, this episode is brought to you by WiseEye Tech. I meant to tell you that before we started the call.
We'll bring it. Let's do it. I'll take the sponsorship. But so Shane, I'm going to put all our cards on the table. I'm pretty transparent with our audience. Les and I we value that. And so this will be a good transition point here as you've shared kind of your story. One of the things, as far as you intersecting with EntrePastors, you've been kind of watching this platform develop from the beginning because of your friendship with Les, and a little bit intrigued by it, I think. But you recently, in recent months, just directly came to Les and myself with kind of a proposal / statement of, hey, you guys have a good platform being built here, but you're still missing something. And I have the ability to fill a little bit of that gap. That something is being able to directly speak into the life of someone who's getting a business up and going. Not that Les and I have zero capability of that, but certainly you have a lot more experience with actually growing businesses from the ground up. And so I want to transition a little bit. And by the way, we're open to that. Like Les and I, we received that, and we're toward the end of this episode, we'll talk about some ways that we're going to leverage your expertise for this community. But let's talk a little bit, if you had the ability to speak into the life of a pastor who, primarily has been in church ministry, but they also have a desire for whatever reason, whether it's I need more income for my family, or I'm just an entrepreneur, I'd love to have something else going, whatever their motivation is, they desire to have a business and get a business starting up. I'm just going to ask you to kind of give some high level advice, or maybe what are some of the problems you see with someone going into business, kind of like you at the age of 22, having no idea how to do it, and yet you figured it out. How could we help short circuit that process for a pastor who maybe they don't have to learn all the lessons the hard way that you learned? I know that's a really broad question, but what advice, encouragement would you give to that pastor who's just getting started in business, maybe?
I think the most important thing that I see in y'all's realm, and in any realm of people starting or thinking about starting a business, is they're terrified of making a decision. So number one, I think you have to don't be afraid to make a decision. That's number one, because not making a decision is not going to do anything. You're not going to get any action, good or bad. And the second thing is, don't be afraid to work if that decision's bad or if that decision was good. That's the two most important things, I believe. You can't be afraid of hard work, and you can't be afraid of making a decision.
That's good. So we see that, I think we see that with a lot of pastors, I think what that looks like, that fear of making a decision, is we see them stalling out. We see them coming to the point of taking action. And then it's like, well, let me think about it. Let me pray about it. Let me talk to my wife. I mean, obviously there's some consideration around financial expenses. And Shane, just so you know, we're largely, our audience are people that are not coming from a place of a lot of financial strength. And so the financial challenges are real. But what would you say to that pastor that's like, I need to make some money, but I don't have a ton of money to invest. I have very little, capital to get started. Like, how, speak to that tension that's there. Like, I want to earn money. I'm just sort of broke right now, but I still need to make a decision and take action. How do you reconcile that?
You just have to be determined, and you have to be resolute when you make that decision that no matter what you do, you're going to make it work. I think too often people get into a business and it's too easy to fall back to what they were doing because it gets hard. And I'll give you an example. When I started my first company, I think me and my wife had saved $10,000, and that she was working. Of course, I was in the military. We lived off what I made. We saved everything she made. Didn't know we were going to go open a business at that time. We were just saving money. So I had $10,000. That's all I had. I had no source of income. Like I said, was married, had a 1-month-old kid, had to live. So I built it with the money that I had. And $10,000 is not a lot of money. It wasn't a lot of money then. And most of that actually stayed in the bank. We never used it. But I started with what I had. That meant, I think people think they have to do things big. And especially in today's environment, they see all these things. They see social media. They see this guy doing this. And they think they have to do it that way. And that's not true. You can do marketing without spending a lot of money on marketing. We used to sit there and do flyers on products and go to Office Depot and print them off, triple fold them, staple them, put a stamp on them, and send them out. It cost us maybe 10 cents. It was a cheap way to get our product and our name directly to a customer. So you can do things that aren't expensive. But you have to but it goes back to that same thing. You have to be willing to put in the work. The less money you have, the more work you're going to have to put in to make things work. And there's really no, unless you're sitting there on $1 million and you want to start a company that's going to cost you $5 million, there's no way around getting around that you're going to have to work.
Yeah. Well, you could make the case, honestly, having just tons of capital might in some ways have you lean too much into that instead of doing the hard work that's still going to be required. I mean, maybe money makes some things easier, solves some problems, but it still doesn't replace the need to actually get out and market your product and have sales conversations and do the hustle, to get a business up and off the ground. So we see that too. Again, with our community, we see that struggle of sometimes I call it sales avoidance. It's a pastor that, or just a business owner that is, well, I need to perfect my website instead of going out and actually having sales conversations with someone. They find distractions that feel busy. It feels like I'm accomplishing something, but in reality, what I'm ultimately doing is avoiding selling my product or my services.
Yeah, and people are naturally geared, I think. A lot of people are naturally geared to taking the easy way. So sitting there working on a website behind a computer is much easier than actually going out there and talking to somebody face to face. It's not nearly as effective. It costs a lot more time, but in some ways it's a way to have an excuse for when you fail. Well, I did everything. I set up a website. I did this. I painted my vehicle. But you never went and saw anybody. Well, no. Well, so they use it sometimes as a way to say I did everything I could, but it didn't work. It's an easy out. And so, there's nothing better than getting out there in the public and talking to people that can use your product. It's cheap. It may cost you a little fuel, but we look for ways out, and we look for ways to make it as easy as possible, which there's just not a way to do that.
Yeah. I'd be curious to get your insight on this, Shane, as someone who's kind of an outsider, if you will, from the pastoral standpoint. One of the things that we do a ton of work with our clients and people in our community is around the issue of mindset. I'll say it this way, and I'm painting with a broad brush. We could find exceptions, but as a general rule, I believe that pastors have really been taught to devalue their time in just the church culture, the stuff, the baggage that comes along with how we quote unquote do ministry in the church. Pastors just kind of over the years of doing that adopt this mentality of I work for next to nothing. I don't get paid very well. And because what I'm doing is ministry and it's for the Lord, I'm supposed to give it away, and I couldn't dare to charge for it. So you don't necessarily struggle with that because you've not been in that culture. I'd be curious to get your outsider's perspective on what would you say to that pastor that is still wrestling with even some of those basic questions of, is it okay for me to charge for these services? Or again, like we'll hear a pastor set their price and it's like, yeah, well, maybe I'll charge $40 an hour. And it's like, bro, we got to get you thinking larger than this, in terms of the value that you're delivering. Like, speak to that pastor that's still in that place of struggling with even charging for their goods and services that they're wanting to sell in their business.
Yeah, I think a lot of them actually, they've come up in a world through family and through culture that they've been made to feel guilty for making money. And, I don't know if that's, if they've actually been taught that way on purpose, or if the culture's just become that way so that they wouldn't expect too much. It's like, a pastor in a church, he wants to get a raise, he has to go through a committee, he has to get it approved. You have to have an open vote in the church, whatever the process is at different churches. So it's always an ask, and they feel bad because they're asking, somebody else for money. They really have to get out of that mindset, because pastors, in my opinion, have a huge set of assets to put into the business place, but they're just afraid to do it. There's nothing wrong with making money, guys. There's nothing biblical that says you can't make money. Matter of fact, I can't remember the verse. That's y'all's job. But I think the Bible says, you're supposed to be taken care of. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you just have to do it at your church. Some churches are bigger, may require all their time, but most are not. They're small.
Yep.
And if you want to be able to improve yourself financially, you're going to have to get outside the church to do that. And don't feel guilty about it. Nobody else is.
There you go. Say more about, you just said that you think pastors have assets to give to the marketplace. Say more about that, because that's another thing we harp on, but I'd love to get it from your perspective. What do you mean? What assets do they have that are valuable in the marketplace?
Well, I think people put a whole lot of faith into product, and they think if I just have a product, it'll sell. And that's not the case. And back to the marketing thing, one of the biggest things you have that you can put to use in a financially feasible way is talking to people that can use your product. Well, what do pastors do? They speak. They're some of the best speakers in the world, pastors. You take that one asset right there and you bring that to the workplace and go talk to people in the way that you've been trained to talk and you've learned to talk by reaching people within the church. You use that same thing to reach people in the marketplace, to talk to them about your product, your service, whatever it is you're doing. And also pastors have, they don't attend it, but they're associated with being in the church and associated with being a pastor. So people have a level of trust there that they don't have with just anybody else trying to get them to buy a product. So they have great speaking ability. They have a built-in level of trust with the public that they can use as an asset to help their business launch at a level that most people can't.
I want to affirm what you just said with a real life example, Shane. Like literally right before we started this interview, as I was waiting for you to figure out technology and get on Zoom with us, I looked at my business phone, and I have a small handyman business that I run. I started it a year ago just as an extra stream of revenue. And literally I just got another customer, repeat customer. So as we're recording this, the next 4 jobs that I have on my radar for my business that have all been approved, 3 of the 4 are repeat customers, are going to add up to over $6,000 in total revenue. A couple of those jobs I'm not even going to go do myself. I'm going to have a couple of my team members working on it while I'm on vacation the next couple of weeks. And I say all that to make the point, we do good work, don't get me wrong, but that's not why people are hiring me. They're hiring me because of the relational skills that I've developed over years in pastoral ministry, where I can make a connection and they trust me. They trust my business. It also helps that I'm a firefighter. I mean, I know they on some level know that, and that brings a level of trust as well. But I'm wanting to use that as a real life example of like that. I want our pastors to hear that business is so much more than just the final product. It's the relationship. And that's where Les and I have said for a long time, pastors, if they really understood the assets that they possess, almost have an unfair advantage in the marketplace if they would step into that. But we don't see that though, Les, do we? A lot of times it's kind of this, like, we have to help them realize that potential that's there because they haven't been led to believe that in the church world. They just deal with all the complaint department most of the time.
Yeah. It's like a lot of things. When you do have an aptitude of something, whether it comes naturally or you've developed it over the years, you tend to take it for granted and think that it's something that everybody can do. And we all know that that's not true.
Yeah.
I remember, Les, when you came to Westwood, what do we have? Maybe 500 members?
Yeah, something like that.
So in talking to pastors, just think, you have an audience of 500 people every week that you're speaking to. They like you or they wouldn't be there. They trust you or they wouldn't be there. How many businesses can start and have 500 customers that listen to everything they say and trust them at that level? None, except the pastor.
Yeah.
So you leverage that, and really it's simple. You leverage that group of people you're already speaking to that have a level of trust. You offer them a good product, and in the end, you simply do exactly what you said you were going to do, and you have an endless stream of revenue off that group. And then they're going to tell more, and they're going to tell more. I wish I had been a pastor. I mean,
not too late, bro. We can sign you up. We can make it happen.
Well, what you just said is huge, Shane, because just if you do anything out, everybody does something in the marketplace. You have a service call, you got an air conditioning unit that goes out, or a refrigerator that's on the fritz, your car needs some. Think of, especially these last few years, think of how hard it is just to get somebody to show up, to answer a phone call, to do what they say they're going to do, for various reasons. That's not being judgmental toward anybody, but that is the way things are right now. So I just speaking to Jon, I don't even have to follow him around. I know that when he tells somebody that he's going to show up for a job, he will. And if there's something that comes up and he can't, he's going to let them know. He's not going to leave them hanging and ghost them if they try to say, hey, bro, where are you? He's going to have team members that do the same. And you just do what you say you're going to do for what you say you're going to do it. And nobody can see the future. Stuff happens. When things happen, just be honest and upfront about it. But that is a foreign concept, Shane, to a lot of people out there that are trying to, make their stuff happen. And so if you're just willing to do that, pastor, ministry leader, whoever is listening right now, you're in the upper 10%, probably fewer than that, but you're certainly in the upper 5 to 10% of people out there in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And I guess if you had to draw a picture for a pastor, because, a lot of times a pastor, somebody in ministry, their mindset's just not geared that way to where they believe that their assets are as great as they are. People limit themselves more than anybody limits them.
Yeah.
But if you could take that and take anybody in the ministry and walk through the church on Sunday, and then record all the conversations between services or while people are walking around, the conversations between a businessman and somebody needing their product. That's where a lot of people are getting their service providers or their product, people within the church. And, the other side of that is if you're doing it out of the church, you better do a good job, because there's nothing worse to me than having somebody that's representing themselves as being a Christian that works like everybody else.
Yeah, that's a good subject for another podcast. I've actually told people, man, please stop telling people you're a Christian. You're killing us.
Yeah.
Right.
They do.
Right. And seriously, we should do a whole episode on that, because sometimes we'll see a pastor launch their business and in their logo, they'll put the cross or something. And I'm not totally against it, but my whole thing has been, if you're a Christian owned business, you shouldn't have to tell people that with your logo or with, your marketing. Like, just show them that you are a Christian owned business by the way you respect them, treat them with kindness, do good work, integrity, honesty, all that stuff. Like, show them what a Christian business is without having to tell them that's what you are. Because if you screw up, then you really are bringing a bad thing to the.
It's like, I actually had somebody tell me one time they saw somebody that had a honk if you love Jesus bumper sticker. They did honk at him because they love Jesus, and the dude gave an obscene gesture as a result. So just if you're gonna talk the talk, walk the walk.
Yeah. There you go.
Hey, the same gentleman that pushed me into going into my first business, that was one of the first things he told me. He said, don't tell anybody you're a Christian. Show them and how you work that you're a Christian.
I love that.
And that always stuck.
Yeah, I love that. Well, before we run out of time here, guys, I want to make sure that we kind of share some big news for our EntrePastors community. Now that you've had a chance to meet Shane a little bit through this podcast, what I want to let you all know is that a couple ways that we're going to be leveraging Shane's expertise and his ability with this community. One is Shane is coming into our mastermind to be an active part of that. So for anybody that is a part of our EntrePastors mastermind, which, by the way, is an invite only, like, you can't just sign up. You can reach out and let us know if you're interested, but we only take people on an application type basis. You have to be invited into that. But Shane's going to be a part of our EntrePastors mastermind, where we will, the members there will have direct access to Shane's coaching and consulting. So we're really excited about that. That's taken the value of that to a whole new level. And the other thing, Shane, which I'm going to ask you to speak about for a little bit, is we're going to make essentially a consulting service available. Now, this is going to be for a specific profile of a customer who would hire this, but the idea of actually sending Shane on site to your location to sit down with you over the course of a few days to really dig into the layers of your business. Potentially you get Jon and Les on some of those consulting trips, depending on what you need. But that's kind of what we're talking about doing with you, Shane. So what do you have in mind? Maybe paint a picture of what does that look like if someone reaches out and says, I want Shane to come and be a part of this. What can they expect in terms of bringing in an outside consultant? What would be some of the things you're looking at and the conversations that you're having with them?
Well, typically, it's my belief that you need to have as much time on site as possible to evaluate a business and then look at ways to make the improvements that are needed. But you can't overload somebody either, because they can only take so much information. What I found worked best with my consulting in the past has been you do a 4-day on site, and you go through the complete scenario of all their operations, all their finances, their inventory, their personnel. You just do an overall business review, and you're looking for things that I really don't care about. Things that are good. That's not what I'm there for. I'm looking for things that aren't working right, and places that we can be more efficient, and ways we can cut costs and still offer the same product and services. And that's where most businesses, they're in the forest all day, so they don't see the trees.
Yeah.
And they get themselves in cracks, and they just can't see how to do it any better, because most of the time, the only way they've done it is the way they're doing it. And it's just like me. I don't have a college degree. I have no formal business training. The way I learned to run a business effectively and be efficient and set up production lines and handle inventory and do marketing is by making a whole lot of mistakes. Which brings me back to my earlier statement is you have to be willing to work, because, either you're really smart and you have all the answers when you start, or you're going to make mistakes and you have to make up for those mistakes. But those lessons that you learn are invaluable. So my role and our role when we go in is we're not going to eliminate every mistake you make, because when I walk out the door, you can make a mistake before I get out of the driveway. What I want to do is I want to look at what you're doing right now and make that work better. And one of the things we want to do is we look really hard at cost of operations, because it's not always about how much money you're making. It's how much money you're spending. You can never make enough if you're spending too much and being frivolous with what you spend and not getting a return on that money. So we like to go in for 4 days. It's a 5-day by the time I travel back and forth, and we can really knock out a lot of things. Now we can do shorter trips if somebody just has inventory control issues, or they have personnel issues, or they need help with marketing. We can do shorter trips, but the 4-day trips are the most cost effective and the most effective for that individual business owner.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome, man. I'm excited, to see who in our community is going to be blessed by bringing you alongside of them. And certainly this is going to be a very targeted offer to the right type of person. Not everyone is going to need this or be in a position to receive it, but we believe we've got some people out there that will love that. And if Les and Jon can kind of be the pastoral filters through which Shane's business expertise passes, I think we've got a really good offering here to be able to help someone navigating in both worlds, both the pastoral church realm as well as the business realm. So Shane, I'm delighted to have you on the team, man. I can see why Les likes you so much, why he respects you, and looking forward to getting to know you more in the days ahead. Les, do you have anything you want to say as we wrap things up?
Yeah, I would just say specifically, if you're wondering, well, I wonder if that can help me. If you have a business that's going right now, and you just either it's not performing the way that you want it to, or to use a phrase, you're bleeding money and you can't understand why. If it seems like there are people out there that are talking about your goods and or services, but you just are stuck or can't get traction, or you want to scale it to not even scale it, but grow it. I think it's a better word. You want to grow it to another level, but just need a fresh set of eyes. Then reach out to us. We'll connect you with Shane, and then you all can see if our goods, if our services can help you in that way. And I believe that we can. But if that describes you in any way, let us know, and we'll have a conversation.
Good stuff. Shane, anything you want to add before we sign off? Anything that you were hoping I asked you and didn't ask you?
No, did a good job. I'm glad to be on board with you guys. I hope we can help a lot of people move into the business world and help those that are in it become more successful. I believe, like Les, that we have a lot to offer between what we were already doing with EntrePastor and the courses and the information that we're providing people, and now with the option to bring in consulting to make businesses better and to help in other ways too. And we'll continue to have the podcast and other things, and we'll take on different subjects. And like I said, I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. So I have a lot to share as we move through on different areas. And I hope people continue to tune in, hope they continue to utilize our services and let us help them become successful business people.
Yeah, Jon, you can gain wisdom in one of two different ways. You can gain wisdom by experiencing things yourself, or you can gain wisdom by the experiences of others. And it's a whole lot less costly and painful most of the time if you can gain it from the experience of others.
Absolutely. It's called an investment. So it saves you a lot of heartache and money and misery in the long run. So Shane, welcome to the team, man.
On consulting services, if they spend $10,000 on a consulting visit and it saves them $50,000 in the next 6 months, it's money made.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Shane, welcome to the team, man. We're glad to have you on board.
Thank you, John.
Well, hey, thanks for watching this episode of the EntrePastors podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we release a new episode. If you'd like to get connected to other pastors who are learning to think, act, and thrive as prosperous entrepreneurs, then we invite you to check us out on Facebook. Just search for the EntrePastors Connect group, answer a few of our simple questions there, and we'd love to include you in the conversations. And if you're really ready to go to the next level, then we invite you to join our EntrePastors membership community. When you become a monthly subscriber, you will receive access to courses, exclusive community, and coaching that will help you along in your own EntrePastors journey. If there's anything else we can do to serve you, please visit us at EntrePastors.com, and we will do our best to serve you there. God bless everybody. See you soon.